Many believe that the God of War franchise had hit its peak and end with the release of God of War 3 in 2010. The announcement of God of War Ascension left some with the impression that it may be a cash-in rather than a worthy addition to an already complete saga. Ascension shoehorns its events in front of the first game's tale as a proper series prequel. With any franchise that focuses on a single character narrative, each subsequent release usually offers a diminishing return when it comes to a narrative payoff. Luckily, Ascension doesn't only have its single player campaign to lean on, as this marks the first entry in the series to feature multiplayer. So, is Kratos' latest struggle worthy of the name God of War? Is the multiplayer a welcome addition or just a bullet point on the back of a box? Unlike previous installments, Ascension's campaign jumps around the timeline, starting near the narrative's conclusion, leaving the player to wonder what led Kratos to the opening scenario. It's a tale of manipulation and control, as Ares and the Furies concoct a plot to make Kratos the ultimate weapon against the forces of Mount Olympus. The story is a bit hard to follow at first, but as the plot progresses and the timeline becomes more clear, Ascension becomes a worthy addition to Kratos' canon. It's interesting to see Kratos in a different spectrum prior to the events of God of War. Through the manipulation of Ares and the Furies, his sanity is nearly consumed by their efforts. He is completely out of character, but with every new story element that unfolds, it becomes more apparent what has our ash-bathed hero in a more subdued state. God of War Ascension's narrative leaves you as the player in a different place from the previous God of War games. It's a story of a man seeking clarity, unsure of his fate, a man unable to see the truth behind the fog.
Never again.
Combat has been the backbone of the God of War games, and has been among the best in the genre. God of War 3 introduced the most complex combat system in the series. Having found the sweet spot, the idea of Ascension falling short of the mark seems almost unfathomable. Unlike previous installments, Kratos wields only the Blades of Chaos. Rather than receiving new weapons, the blades receive elemental upgrades as Kratos progresses. On paper this seems fine, but the differentiation between each elemental weapon comes through upgrades, leaving your arsenal feeling limited until you have all the upgrades near the end of the game. Early on, finding the right weapon for the situation at hand is usually irrelevant as a result of poor damage feedback and a lack of variety in terms of attacks and combos. Once everything is unlocked, the combat ramps up, revealing the uniqueness of each weapon. It's just disappointing how long it takes for the true potential of your weapons to be unleashed. Hardcore fans will adjust to the new system. Casual followers of the series will find it a bit out of sync. A second playthrough is recommended for the full combat experience. Ascension's combat focuses on combos. The higher the counter, the more powerful the attacks become, unlocking new abilities and a rage mode. This change sometimes works, but when a large amount of enemies attack and break your rhythm, it's hard to find it once again. One major issue is the counter attack setup. Instead of just being the L1 button at the precise moment, you have to hold the L1 button down and hit the X button at the right moment. This small change breaks the flow of combat and never feels as smooth as God of War 3. Did this change come to be because of the alternative attacks of each weapon, or to better balance the multiplayer? Either way, why fiddle with something that isn't broken? As a prequel, the decisions made ultimately make sense, but for the sake of combat it takes a step back from God of War 3's offerings. As always, the camera of God of War Ascension does its part, putting the player in the midst of every epic moment. Zooming in at the right moment, showing every expression delivered by both Kratos and his kill. Gazing into the eyes of the Juggernaut as Kratos rips into its skull is such an intense moment. The camera also does a great job in revealing the world as it evolves without breaking the flow of the game. The level design continues the series' evolution of blurring the line between level and puzzle. A level such as the Statue of Apollo sets a new standard for puzzles, making the labyrinth of God of War 3 look like a joke. Ascension stumbles, however, by sometimes cramming too many puzzles into too short of a section. And the game also features one very annoying arena sequence, but overall the structural design deserves praise. Very much like its predecessors, Ascension's graphics are superb. Textures are clear, never breaking down when up close. Finding a wall repeating the same pattern is non-existent, as there is always a break. Watching structures collapse into pieces that could quite possibly be placed back together is not seen so much in games. God of War Ascension takes no shortcuts with environmental detail, and it shows all around. Particle effects are also ramped up. Seeing the streaks left by the Blades of Chaos in its different forms adds to the fierceness of every swipe. When every elemental magic attack is unlocked, the screen is consumed with such fury, it just looks very damn cool. Santa Monica Studios' attempt to surpass its previous game's intro has become tradition, but for the first time fails to hit the mark. On a technical level, it goes beyond God of War 3, but ends up falling short, never fully grasping the awe factor as the previous entry. They succeed in creating an epic scenario, but with everything going on, the scale is undermined by the architectural structures, making it feel as if in a regular city, rather than a city on an enormous titan. Ascension ends up being dwarfed by God of War 3's epic scale due to its design. The number of boss battles is significantly fewer, and the available encounters are neither as memorable nor exciting as its predecessor. The final boss battle, however, is a welcome return to form and a worthy conclusion. Not only are there fewer enemies on screen, but the variety of creatures presented is underwhelming. And why are there certain enemies only introduced twice within the whole game? The soundtrack is also hushed. Previous titles used the soundtrack to make even the most simple acts and discoveries seem grandiose, and without this, Ascension can feel incomplete at times. As always, the dialogue and vocals are top-notch, giving every character life in the game's cutscenes.
God, you will need this skill for the path ahead.
And what path is that?
The path of freedom, Kratos.
Multiplayer makes its first appearance in God of War, which is an unusual addition to a franchise that's pedigree was built on a single-player experience. In the face of death, your warrior asks the gods for power. Summoned onto Olympus, you choose your allegiance. After pledging an oath to one of the gods, your warrior is given special attributes, perks, and a weapon related to the god of choice, though the option to change allegiances is available in the multiplayer menu. After a quick tutorial, Ascension throws the player quickly into the action, offering multiple game modes to choose from, ranging from deathmatch, CTF, and a time trial variant. Other than the free-for-all matches, Ascension encourages teamwork, rather than just throwing two teams into a fight to the death. By rewarding everything you do, the game promotes exploration and the incentive to do the little things on the side. It's not uncommon to see the guy with the highest kills fall short of the #1 player who focused on the objective at hand. It's a slick system that rewards the team players rather than the lone wolves. Trial of the Gods is a time-based game very similar to Resident Evil's Mercenaries, where two players take on the hordes as quick as possible in order to gain time. Capture the Flag is surprisingly thrilling and entertaining. Tensions run high when there are 30 seconds on the clock and both teams have each other's flag, risking a clash at the center of the map. The combat is smooth, knowing when to block and counter becomes a game of its own. By predicting your opponent's next move and deploying your magic at the precise time is key to every battle. It's about knowing how to balance your defense, attacks, and magic. Just don't expect to take on two people at the same time too often. The end result is usually unfavorable. In the midst of a great battle, it does get a bit crowded, and losing track of your player becomes a problem, making it hard to react to a situation you are unsure of. Ascension does a great job in spreading these encounters across the arena, but these massive melee brawls are inevitable. Every map is different and unique, with a variety of traps, breakable/repairable structures, and the occasional titan. Other than the labyrinth level, traversing the maps is easy and quick, complementing the fast pace of the combat. New weapons, armors, relics, and magic are unlocked through an increase in level, completing labors and purchases using skill points. Arming your warrior with the right tools is essential when it comes to your playstyle, and there is some depth here. Though the option to change physical attributes is very small, only allowing to change an origin and armor tint. God of War Ascension's multiplayer is smartly introduced within the God of War universe, making it a worthy addition to the package.
30 seconds remaining.
With a great story to tell and the added bonus of multiplayer, God of War Ascension delivers in the least likely of places. Unfortunately, many other series staples stand in the titanic shadow of its predecessor. The combat isn't as varied and enjoyable, the Hush soundtrack doesn't invigorate, and a small number of boss encounters fails to impress. God of War is best known for its epic moments in combat, but as a prequel, stepping back in time has hindered the evolution of these elements, and as a result, Ascension strays from what defined the series in the first place. Santa Monica Studios' attempt to add another story to the saga is definitely worth a playthrough. If you've played all the other God of War games, this is a must-buy. For the few that are thinking of starting the saga should know, although this is a God of War game, it's not the defining God of War experience.